Hi folks, I know it's a long time since we were talking to you, at which point both Mabine and myself were very enthusiastic about Aspire in Harrow, and we were at that point, both of us I believe to say, very excited at that time about your party under Zara Sultana, who I know slightly, and Jeremy Corbyn. Well, not only is a week a long time in politics, but a few months is even more so. Today we've both voted for the Green Party. In London we are very optimistic. In fact, we actually count on the fact that the Greens will win the election. We're a bit more concerned about the rest of the UK, and we'll be talking about later on. But right now what we're going to really do is talk to you about why we've both voted for the Green Party. My reasons for doing it is very straightforward. I've been a socialist who voted Labour all my life. Not exactly as a supporter of the leadership, it has to say, but since 1979 I have consistently voted Labour, even under leaders that I despise. Tony Blair, even after the war in Iraq, I had huge arguments with my ex-wife that I was still voting Labour. And yet this time around I needed to vote for the Greens. One, because I believe they're a credible alternative to a party which is lost for socialism. And the Labour Party is completely lost for socialism now, in a way it wasn't when Tony Blair hijacked it in violation of its own constitution. It is actually, frankly, with all respect to Zara and Jeremy, the only credible alternative to Labour at this time. And in London, it's raised some very, very important issues, apart from the international ones, which we'll talk about separately. And the main one there is that actually we have a major housing crisis in the capital. People cannot afford to live. Working class people are being squeezed out of their communities by gentrification, by property development. The Greens have said that they will side with tenants. They will side with people who need social housing against property developers, as against Labour councils working with property developers, particularly in Southwark and Croydon and places like that, which has led to massive defections from Labour, from the ranks of the Labour councillors into the ranks of the Green Party. Greens have also benefited from the false start that was your party, which enabled people like ourselves to actually break with Labour, because that was quite strong and biblical, and probably more so for me than you, but it was a very strong link that we broke. And although the Greens aren't as left as I would like, they don't have the organic connection yet to the Labour movement I'd like to see, they are actually closer to the way I see the world than a corrupt Labour Party under Keir Starmer. The other day, before I hand over to my friend here, the other day I saw an article, a rather kind of leering article in the New Statesman, saying, what does Zach Polanski stand for? And my answer to that was very simple. Zach Polanski stands for what the Labour Party used to stand for. It stands for reasons why I actually went out and canvassed for the Labour Party in my youth. And it's much closer to those values. And we are living under an unprecedented crisis of capitalism, and we need real change. And the Green Party could be the vehicle for that change.
Interesting. Yeah, so my perspective is more, I've been a communist since I was 18, basically, or since I was 19.
Yeah, well, so was I, but I've been around the block longer.
Sure. I should say, yeah.
Yeah, but go on, no, sorry, yeah.
Yeah, and I was expelled from the Labour Party after about a year in by Starmer's NEC.
Yeah.
And then I was, like you, very excited about your party and what was going on. But recently I've been expelled from your party as well. I haven't been removed from the mailing list.
That's scandalous.
But I've been expelled because I'm for both reasons, actually, for the exact same...
Yeah.
Both times for the exact same reason that I'm a member of a Trotskyist organisation. But in both cases, we were a group in the Labour Party that wanted to see the Labour Party succeed at that time, right? Yeah. Which is more than could be said for many of the right-wing groups in Labour during Jeremy Corbyn's time, who actively sabotaged.
They actively campaigned to make sure.
Should never be forgotten. Should never be forgotten.
The whole Morgan McSweeney, Peter Mandelson cabal that created the corrupt piece of garbage, quite frankly, that is Keir Starmer, They actively campaigned to undermine Jeremy Corbyn's election prospect. I was expelled from the Labour Party as well, incidentally. Although I wasn't a member of the militant, I was expelled for campaigning for a guy called David Nellist in the Coventry South election of 1992, who was a militant member. Our position within the WRP, we were half in, half out of the Labour Party I was in, was that any attack on the left is an attack on the left. And having gone beyond the sectarianism that we had under Jerry Healey, we saw that David Nellist was an authentic representative of the Labour Party, very popular in South Coventry. He was the real candidate. The candidate was parachuted in to replace him was not a real candidate. So it's actually history repeating itself in many ways what happened to you. But even after that, I carried on voting Labour because there was still I didn't buy into the argument, which was the militants' argument at the time, that Labour had already been transformed into a bourgeois party. If it had been, Jeremy Corbyn would not actually have been able to become leader, and I rejoined the Labour Party to vote for Jeremy. The thing is, what's happened now is alongside the mass expulsions, which are an outrage, is that you've now got dark money piling into the Labour Party, corrupt money, right-wing think tanks, corporate money coming in. You go to the Labour Party conference, it's like going to a business. It's like going to a business bloody expo.
Yeah, there's presentations by Deliveroo and Uber Eats.
Exactly, it's disgusting. That is what has lost Labour for socialism for me. So that even if someone marginally better than they couldn't be much worse. But even if someone marginally better than Starmer, someone like Angela Rayner, someone like Andy Burnham actually became leader, it would look like a small step in the right direction. But actually, the substance of it cannot change because now it has become a bourgeois party, pure and simple.
Yeah, and I think the other thing is that one of the reasons we were so excited about your party is not because necessarily of your party itself, but more that it represented and was a vehicle for the political expression of the working classes, radicalism and revolutionary instinct. Yeah. We saw within a very short period of time 800,000 signatures.
Potentially the biggest party in the UK.
Right. It instantly would have been, if it was, well, just, okay, we have all your emails, here's the membership link, it's £2 a month, you get like half of the people who can't, it doesn't matter, you just sign them all up.
Yeah.
Really, you just sign them all up and you figure out dues later.
Yeah.
For this sort of mass. But anyway, all of that was completely squandered.
Yeah.
By the... that deserves its own topic.
It does. Well, I'm going to actually come in. I am going to come in on that a bit. I primarily do blame Jeremy Corbyn for that.
I blame him more than
much more so. In fact, ideologically, I'm probably still closer to Zara Sultana than I am to Zach. Although I do like Zach a great deal, and we voted for him today. I think Jeremy Corbyn has too much. No disrespect, Jeremy, if you look at this, has too much Stalinist baggage. Popular frontism. You formed a popular front with social conservatives on one issue, which is, don't get me wrong, the Palestine genocide is a really important issue. But when you get to the point where you're actually forming popular fronts with people who are landlords, people who oppose taxing private schools so their kids go to private schools, and start muscling someone like Zara Sultana out, then that's shabby. And I think what Zara did after that was probably correct. Unfortunately, she's now in a position where she relies on groups like the Socialist Workers' Party because she's actually been marginalised. If I was Zara, I would look at my position very carefully within your party. I think during a general election, people should vote for her, despite whatever party she stands for or none. But, my God, the Green Party needs a Marxist faction. And I would love to see her join.
I think that would be an interesting development. It's hard to say whether at any given time it would be positive beforehand, but it's something I'd like to see.
Well, it's coming back to the thing what you were talking about earlier on today. We were having a chat before we went on air. You were talking about the fact that Zach is now quite correctly courting trade unions, saying quite frankly, what's Labour doing for you for its political levy? You know, why have we still got anti-trade union laws? Why have we still got secondary and solidarity picketing being illegal? Why have we still got all the crap that began with the 1982 Employment Act under Jim Pryor going forward. Why has that all not been completely binned by a Labour Party which is supposed to represent the trade unions? And also, as I said, the one thing that the Green Party lacks is an organic link with the working class movement, and it needs that. Actually, it will need that for it to survive. Quite frankly, once it's in government, because the Sky. I don't know if anyone remembers a very British coup. Harry Perkins, as he said famously in the, once we come into government, the sky will fall in. The psychological warfare offensive that we saw against Jeremy Corbyn has already started to get Zach Polanski. And once we're in government, the banks, the financial institutions, the hedge funds, the Americans, all these people are going to try and wreck that government. And quite frankly, the one thing you're going to need is a solid organic, well, many things you'll need, but one you're going to need is a solid organic connection to the trade union and labour movement.
So this is sort of what I think, to sum up on why I'm voting for the Greens, it's more about what they represent than the Green Party itself. Like I said, there was this massive surge around your party that was completely squandered. Yeah. The majority of that surge was then soaked up by the massive surge in membership of the Green Party.
It is.
That is the same phenomenon. I'm quite pleased with the RCP's orientation towards the Greens as well, where it's quite a mature take, where it's... I for a while, was arguing about whether, we should enter the Greens. And I think it was making a sort of fetish of entryism. It's like, this is a tactic that we can do, but it's not necessary. We don't have to find an organisation to join any given time. We can speak positively about the positive developments in the Green Party, which we're doing right now, without joining it necessarily.
I think that swings around about. So, the thing is, I'm no longer a member of a democratic centrist organisation, and I haven't been for quite a time. 20 years, it was a long time ago. The group that is nearest to the group I used to be in, which would be Workers' Power, one thing I always notice about they're raid entryists. They only think, let's go and smash and grab raid, get a few bloody members and bugger off. And if you're going to go in the Green Party, I think you're going for the long haul. I think that at the moment it's a left populist party, a bit like Syriza in Greece. And the more successful equivalent party, which I can't remember the name of, in Spain. And the reason it begins with P, the reason I don't say it, because I get it mixed up with there's a fascist party that also begins with P, and I'm obviously not going to be supporting them. But they are of that left populist ilk, insofar that there is no social basis anymore for classic social democracy, because capitalism is basically in its death agony, and it really is on the end of its tether. But the residue of a radical ideology that's not quite yet revolutionary, but which wants real change. I think you've got that in various European countries, and in this country now, that is represented by the Green Party, which is where I think, I believe myself personally, where socialists should be. Now, it doesn't mean say that down the line, Zach, for example, still thinks you can transform society through Parliament alone. I don't believe that. He still thinks, no, if I'm misrepresenting you, Zach, I'm sorry. He still seems to think that you can actually restrain hedge funds and bond markets from manipulating politics without expropriating all the financial institutions. I don't think you yet realise there's a rough ride he's going to get when let's be positive about when we get elected. But I think he's raised the temperature. He's talked about the injustices of there being no rent controls. He's talked about the injustices of the housing crisis in the UK. He has not framed immigrants and small boats as a moral panic, like all the bourgeois parties, including Labour. He has recognised that the NATO, we're slightly on different than defence. One thing we both agree on, we don't want to be in NATO anymore. And he's raising these issues, and he supported Palestine and opposed the Zionist Holocaust there, and so on and so on, and being lampooned for it and attacked, even though he's Jewish himself. On all these issues, he's actually raising consciousness rather than suppressing it. And also, the people who are attacking him, the venality of it. The Sun and the Times trying to dig any dirt they can get, and it's really pitiful the stuff they come out with. And then you get a person like Keir Starmer, who covered up Grenfell Janner and then was bought and paid for by Peter Mandelson, who then deliberately undermined Labour's election prospects when Jeremy Corbyn was in there, and rewarded, at the end of the day, rewarded Mandelson by making him his intermediary spent more time attacking the Green Party than attacking the Reform fascists. That person, I'm being polite, has the affront to say that Zach Polanski's got no right to be leading a political party. Well, there are many people who've got no right to be leading a political party. Obviously, I'm on a nice day, so I'll say Nigel Farage belongs to be in jail. But quite frankly, Keir Starmer has less right to be running a political party than Zach Polanski. And it's just hypocritical rubbish.
This is something I wanted to talk about. So this recent barrage of attacks against Polanski, where they were looking for some weakness and they found it when he apologised, I should make clear, not when he tweeted whatever he tweeted.
Yeah.
Which I don't really care about. But his apology, even partial apology, where he said it was not the right forum to raise it, I appreciate that.
Yeah.
And the follow-up attack, basically, from that by the Met.
Yeah.
We have police officers making commentary about political...
Members of a police force that is under special measures.
Yeah.
And has not reopened, will not investigate Jeffrey Epstein's activities in Britain. That will not reopen the case of Vishal Marathi in 1981, which will not reopen the case of Bulak Forsav in 1993, even though under Home Office regulations is supposed to revisit unsolved murders every 5 years. They don't do that. So he all of a sudden, Mark, what's his second name, Roney, all of a sudden he decides that he's going to leap in on this one and have a go at Zach Polanski. There's another issue being raised here. We live in not very far from Golders Green. The guy who actually carried out the stabbing, he was actually a guy being released from a mental hospital. He stabbed a Somalian guy in Southwark before he came in. And we don't hear a great deal about that. But the group that's actually claiming responsibility for this, now, I said in one of my Substack blogs, because I'm actually very reluctant to say false flag, unless there really is one, but this is the group that actually did petrol bomb a Jewish health charity a few months back and has been involved in attacks on synagogues. There's every likelihood that this is actually a Zionist false flag. If you're the Iranians and Britain is not yet involved in the war on the side of the Americans against Iran, the last thing you're going to do is give a government an excuse to be piling on the side of the Americans. I mean, if I was an Iranian agent in Britain, I'd be looking at those two American planes that are actually in Fairford, in Gloucestershire, and thinking, how can I get an agricultural drone and blow the bloody things up? I would not be killing or attacking Jewish targets in North London. It is so obvious that is aimed at actually fueling a pro-Zionist, Islamophobic, potentially pro the genocide in Gaza, but also potentially supporting the war in Iran. And I've noticed that since the fake ceasefire that never was, the mood music coming from Keir Starmer in relation to what's happening in the Persian Gulf has changed completely. The mood music now is that Iran is the villain of the piece. Now, don't get me wrong. I resigned from working for an Iranian TV network because I wouldn't support things like the taping of the filming of convicted prisoners in Iran who were basically political dissidents. I'm not a natural cheerleader for that regime. But Iran has been attacked using exactly the same kind of genocidal methods as have been already tried and tested against the population of Gaza. And all of a sudden we're supposed to say, oh, these are the villains of the piece. Oh, well, let's all pile in on the side of America. Before the so-called ceasefire, which never was, some of our European leaders were showing a little bit of backbone at last and saying, well, actually, we actually don't really need America anymore. Why should we fight their illegal wars? Well, we don't entirely agree, me and Mabine on this one. But my argument is we need a common European defence policy, which is completely separate from NATO. And that's not NATO by one. That's completely different configuration. Like, for example, we would defend Cuba from being attacked from the Americans. We would actually defend Canada and Denmark and Iceland from being. We should no longer be friends with a fascist America.
What do you think my disagreement is with that? Out of curiosity.
I thought you were for British neutrality.
Sorry?
I thought you were for British neutrality. Oh, I'm sorry, mate. I'm misreading you.
No. Yeah.
No, I apologise to everyone out there. Okay.
No, it's fine. No. There is a disagreement we have, I think, about the Ukraine war, but I think it's more slight than that.
The thing is, Starmer is now preparing to rope Britain into this war. And that's another reason for voting for the Green Party.
Yeah, certainly. I mean, the Labour Party now... I mean, what Starmer's goal has been to sell the Labour Party to finance capital.
Yeah.
So that they're like the Tories, who were already sold to finance capital. And that's basically what's happened. So now the Labour Party and the Conservatives are run by the same financial interests, and frankly, the Reform are run by as well.
They are as well. They would use fascist methods to actually guarantee that.
Yeah, but it's the same interest. Yeah. It's the same financial interest behind all three. The only party basically right now that doesn't represent financial interests is the Green Party. Yeah. So that basically answers it. But the problem is that Zach Polanski does not. I don't really believe he has a principled opposition to... He does certainly have principles.
Oh, yes, principles.
Yeah, he certainly has principles. But I have trouble trouble trusting someone who used to be a Lib Dem.
Well,
you know what I mean? I know and I don't mean to be like coy about that, but like he strikes me more as someone who has seen an opportunity for a certain kind of politics. And someone who genuinely wants to help people, certainly, but that isn't. He's not a principled Marxist. On that, we could like. That's
he's not a Marxist at all. Let's be honest. It's not a question of principle. He's not a Marxist.
Yeah.
I would say, in terms, I used to teach political economy.
Yeah,
I would say he's basically a Keynesian.
Yeah,
he believes that capitalism could be made more humane. Take off the, polish it around the edges. Take the nastier elements out of it, and I think he's sincere in that belief. I think the word opportunist is fundamentally wrong. He realises that the left are some of the best friends he's got at the moment, but whether or not he would, in office, actually say, right, okay, the sky's going to fall in. We're going to now declare a state of emergency because of the threat against us. We're going to expropriate all the banks and financial institutions, and these people we're going to nationalise without compensation. He does agree with taxing assets over income. That's good. That's good. So bits of things that he does agree with, but he doesn't realise what he's up against when it comes to really being obstructed by these people who are the real government of this country. The drunken sock puppets in bloody Parliament, whether it's Keir Starmer or Badinu or even a piece of fascist garbage like Nigel Farage. They are the sock puppets of finance capital. The difference with Farage and fascism is it's very direct. And their money goes straight into Reform UK. They pay Nigel Farage's wages directly. With the democratic reactionaries, Conservative, Labour, Liberal Democrats, if they even matter, it's all intermediary. It's through think tanks and intermediary dark finance. They will not just bring crypto millionaires into a government as Farage will do. But they all, at the bottom line, represent capitalism. And the ones who are more democratic, let's say, just take Starmer as an example, they're banking on the fact there's going to be an economic recovery under capitalism and there's never going to be one anymore. There's not enough surplus value in the system to sustain accumulation. Capitalism can only survive by grinding the working class and democracy into the dirt. For the oligarchs, democracy is an obstacle to the continuation of their wealth.
And they're saying this openly now.
Oh, they're not even lying. People like
Peter Thiel.
You beat me to it. Yeah, and Larry Ellison and obviously Elon Musk and
vampires.
All the vampires, feeding on the carcass of a dying system. And I don't think that at the moment Zach gets that. Whether he will or not in the future, remains to be seen.
Yeah.
What I'm to change the goalposts a bit of what we've been talking about. We've been talking about how it's very likely that here in London and in Bristol and in Brighton that the Greens are going to walk it. I'll be devastated if they don't.
That would be dire.
But I actually do come from the West Midlands, and it bothers me that in other parts of the country we're looking at a very different scenario.
Yeah, and this is something else that I wanted to mention, is that I had a look at a certain poll, and Zach Polanski's popularity has swung 20 points negative. That and like obviously that's what that. It's funny that the media reporting that is like, oh my god, for some reason everyone hates Zach Polanski now after the media has like hounded him for the last however, you know.
But it's having a resonance.
But it's working, and that is concerning.
It is concerning. I mean, even in London the other day, I mean, I went to my local Wetherspoons, I hate to admit, and there was a rent-a-math in the corner. The bloke who bought his council house in the 1980s is proud of being a scab during various strikes. Typical kind of working class conservative. And there he is, and I'm like, Zach Polanski this, Zach Polanski that. When he was a hypnotist, this, blah, 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 blah. He claimed to be representing the red. This is really, really scraping the barrel stuff. They can't find any real dirt on the back.
And they're being really anti-Semitic as well.
Absolutely. Look at that bloody a Times cartoon. I'm not, don't even get me started on that.
Yeah.
But even in London, that residence is starting to happen. Of course, another problem we've got here is that we've got a large Asian population that is predominantly Hindu, and some of them are quite well off. And they're buying into the fact that, for example, that Helen won the election in Gorton and Dalton by appealing to what they call Islamic fundamentalism, basically to the Muslim population. And that, they showed how terrible. They showed pictures of Netanyahu and Modi. Well, they actually do support each other, so why wouldn't you do that? And trying to say that it's family voting and all this kind of... I'm sure there's lots of family voting goes on with the landed gentry when they go to vote Tory. But all that crap that came out, and it is crap, people are buying into it. Now, that's in London, where the Green Party are likely to win. I can see scenarios where in the Midlands, in the North, not so much in Birmingham and Coventry themselves, they're very multicultural and very cosmopolitan, but you get out to places like Dudley and places like Sandwell and places like, sort of like Walsall, where, for example, the EDL have mobilised against asylum seeker hostels, where they've actually mobilised against mosques being built and so on and so forth. There is a resonance there among people who still think the main cause of their social ills and the exclusion of their communities is immigration, rather than what it really is. Who closed the steelworks and the car industry in the West Midlands? It wasn't immigrants. It was a Tory government representing the unbridled release of finance capital, hoovering up on capital that had already been created in terms of Britain's manufacturing base. And I mean, I'm a proud Brummie. The West Midlands is the birthplace of the Industrial Revolution, the town of the 1,000 trades. It wasn't immigration that got rid of that. It was capitalism during its death agony. And it's capitalism done the same in Manchester, done the same in Sheffield, done the same in the North East, in Sunderland, in Newcastle, and so on and so forth. But in large sections of the UK, where the working class has been politically defeated and then disconnected from its history of struggle, it's very easy to say, you're on the dob, you're on the back of the queue because there's somebody right in front of you and blah, blah, blah. They'll get a council house before you do. All this kind of crap does have a certain resonance. There's no good pretending it doesn't. And I could see reform doing quite well in other parts of the UK. The only good thing that could come out of that, I mean, there's not much, is that the councils are already run by reform. They're making such a pig's ear of it that actually the people who voted for them, who will now not get their drains cleared, whose schools are being whose public services are being annihilated. Because Farage wants to believe Doge, like in America, slash whole.
He wants private insurance-based medical care.
Oh yeah, he wants. There'll be no national health service if you vote for a reform.
It's over. It's done.
I mean, it's not exactly like Labour doing a great deal to save it, but they're not actually to getting rid of it altogether. And Farage is.
And I think this is. I think we should talk about the threats, not only the threats that like the Greens would face if they get into power, but basically the threat of reform and fascism, British fascism.
Yeah, I agree.
Right, because I think we both have the perspective that all of like these attacks on hotels, attacks on immigrants, on basically anyone who's not white, will get worse.
They will
for the foreseeable future.
The threat of fascism now. I mean, I'm old enough to be involved in anti-fascist action in the 1980s and early 1990s. Nasty, horrible groups, British National Party, National Front, they needed to be dealt with. We dealt with them by physical force. We beat the fuckers up. And that
tradition needs to come back.
That tradition needs to come back. The danger is, you're right there, 100%. But those organisations were actually never in a position where they ever become contenders for state power. They would never have won an election. Whereas now, reform can. And it's got a ready-made Freikorps in the form of the English Defence League who will do their dirty work for them. And that's real. That's not hypothetical. We are now almost in the scenario of Germany in 1933. And,
But I would say, and this is where we might disagree on the threat, on the ultimate threat, basically, is that I still have revolutionary optimism despite that.
Oh, I still have optimism as well. I think people will be woke up, that's all. Go on,
that basically the working class still cares about, for example, its access to benefits. Like the attacks on disability will be so much worse under reform. The attacks on the NHS, which the working class still uses a lot and gets a lot of use out of. I know everyone likes to moan and complain they can never get an appointment, but we do actually have appointments with our GPs.
And if you turn up and said that costs you 18 quid or 20 quid, people would soon,
Right,
but then it's too
because
late.
of that, and fascism has always been kind of allergic to government. It's always like self-imploded very quickly, and I think basically this is one of the this is one of the features of what will happen is that the working class hopefully will very quickly reject reform once it takes power.
And we may just keep. We may disagree on this.
No, it's not guaranteed.
I think once they get into office, I do think, unless there's a general strike within.
Oh, it's really bad.
3 or 4
they get into
months.
office, I should say. A lot of stuff is going to be
unless they're actually overthrown within 3 or 4 months.
That I don't think is likely. I don't have that much revolutionary optimism.
Then we're talking about a different scenario, and get hold of your AK-47 and start bombing and killing. It is going to be that bad. We can actually stop that from happening, I believe, before reform comes.
Well, basically, it's about how much can the Greens gain? How much ground can the Greens gain for the next election, following on from these council elections? Because you're also right in that all of these the council elections would be actually a very good test case, because all of these 1,500 reform seats that are projected, they're all going to just say stop the boat, stop the boat, stop the boat, and do nothing.
Not do anything in public.
And all of these Green seats are going to be filled with inspired young people who or seasoned community. These are the types of people, impassioned people who actually care about.
Yes,
stuff.
You're right.
Whereas there might be a few people like that in reform, but it's just hollow.
No, there's going to be anyone like that in
vapid. That is the Green strut. So there's the big party structure stuff about joining the trade unions and stuff, and then there's actually doing good council work and opposing.
Yes, and so far we've got the proof of that pudding.
No more dented shields.
Yeah, that in London, that proof of that pudding's already there. The council members in Southwark and in Croydon who've switched from Labour to the Green Party have done so because they want to side with tenants, They want rent controls. They want there to be more social housing and less gentrification of their neighbourhoods. They don't want the council that they're a member of to be in bed with private property speculators. So we're already seeing that at a very local level, and that's great. That's really good. I mean, it really is good. It's inspirational.
So what are the tasks and sort of perspectives for the left?
Okay, right.
Now.
I also used to be a Trotskyist, and I'm still lean to some extent on what you might call the Russian Marxist tradition. And although we live in different historical circumstances to when Trotsky wrote the transitional program in 1938, there are still nuggets in there that are still valid. And one, of course, is the idea of the United Front, that you build a movement and fight for the leadership. In this case, I believe we build the Green Party and fight for the leadership. I would love to see a Marxist faction within the Green Party. I'd love to see Zara Sultana part of it, but there are already Marxists, clever people.
There are Marxists
in the Green Party, and not just the burnt-out old Trotskyist has-beens like me, but young ones as well. That's part of it. The other part is that you're not going to transform society through winning an election alone. And Trotsky described it as the jewel in the crown of the transitional program, a slogan called the workers' government. What does the workers' government mean? It means you have a parliamentary government supported by workers' councils. Now, the inference there, you talk about Russia in 1917, a revolutionary crisis and interwar, where you would have millions of workers being represented in these groups, and that is not going to happen in the next foreseeable future, more's the pity. However, if you go back to the French General Strike in 1968, councils of action were formed that were almost like proto-state organs. And I think that once a Green government comes under attack, and it will, either physical attack from fascism, or trying to wreck the economy, or a combination of both, or trying to be invaded by America, although we've got nuclear weapons, so I don't think they're going to do that, there will be need for extra parliamentary support for that government in trying to transform society. And I think the forming councils of action will be a very, very important backbone, organically linked to the trade unions and community groups, will be a massive part of supporting that government, and maybe even shoving it along a bit in terms of like bringing the changes that we might actually need. And I think that is going to be the way forward. And I don't think it's completely utopian to be talking about that.
Yeah.
You know. So, you just think, all right.
For the most part, I mean, I obviously we can't say for sure how.
No, we can't. It's only yeah.
But I agree that those are the tasks that we have to, orient ourselves towards this progressive element within the Greens. Yeah. I don't necessarily think the Green Party is going to be the party that takes us to the finish line. It's not even necessarily the case that a faction of the Greens, but that element is right now within the Green Party.
It is. It's in there.
That is undeniable.
However, it plays out. I mean, before we went online, we took the possibility the Greens might split in the future. That's way ahead. I'm not even going to get into that one. But certainly, the personnel, the people who are going to change society,
currently,
are good people who are currently in the Green Party. Yeah. And there is no doubt about that.
And I guess fingers crossed for the election today.
Well, I think in London we're pretty safe. I'm more concerned about the rest of the UK. We've already said that.
We'll see how it turns out.
So it turns out the future, as Joe Strummer once said, is unwritten. And we might be back at the weekend to actually see where we got the results.
Yeah, that'd be good.
Yeah.
All right.
And for now, good night, God bless, and forward to socialism.